I'm more concerned about what you can do here, because I know the Jewish community in Melbourne, Sydney, throughout the country feel under attack right here, never mind what's happening in Israel. We've had a couple of rabbis leave an interfaith group in Melbourne. There's pressure on those interfaith organisations, and we are seeing Jews having to step up security at their schools, at their synagogues. Just tell me about the mood in the community.
No, there's a lot of concern, a lot of fear, and I'll tell you, I've heard a dual message. Some people are saying to me they're so grateful to their non-Jewish friends and colleagues and people come to their shops who have embraced them, who have called them, who have reached out to them. But I've also heard the opposite. I've heard a lot of people who said, you know, maybe 5% of my colleagues have actually said anything to me, that we stand with you, that we're with you. So the first thing to say to the general Australian community is, if you know anyone who's Jewish, reach out to them and tell them how you're thinking of them and how you're holding up. It would do a lot to the positive perspective of the community. The other thing that is important for us to recognize and realize, that this comes from education. How could you butcher the way they did? This is how people were educated. And who paid for that education? The UN, the United States, Europe, Australia, and even as the previous government took away that funding, or to an extent, this present government put it back. Absolutely. So yes, they had the right rhetoric after what happened, but the first thing they should do is announce that they're going to stop this funding, because this is what creates. And now the question is, how much of that kind of education do we have in our schools here? Well, and that's where the fear is. How do people scream "Gaz the Jews" in Sydney Opera House, which was a blotch against our city, our beautiful city? It's became a source of embarrassment. Anytime anyone around the world wanted to say look what they're saying in Sydney, Australia, it's really put us in a terrible light. And the crazy thing is, when it came to COVID demonstrations, the police were able to stop the demonstrators.
And that's a great question, Rabbi, because in certain parts of the world they are saying no to these so-called Palestinian protest demonstrations, whatever you want to call them. I'm completely baffled. It doesn't matter where politically you stand, and you mentioned the two states, which I've always said is a nonsense, can never occur. But no matter where you stand on that, protests are fine, but you cannot have, in the light of Jews being held in torture chambers in Gaza now, what civilized society can tolerate people suddenly having demonstrations supporting those who are committing these atrocities? If it were anything else, we'd go, the horror. You can't allow this to happen. Push it back 6 months if you must, but not now. What is it like as a Jew in Australia to see the demonstrations yesterday? I gathered there's one today in Melbourne. What is it like?
It's obviously people are extremely on edge. They feel afraid. Many
Threatened?
people do. They feel threatened, absolutely. And we have a great relationship with the police, and we have our communal security group who do enormous work in this regard. But yes, people are on edge, and that's what terror wants to achieve, right? And what I say to people is, at the end of the day, as a Jewish rabbi, we believe that God will protect us, and we need to stop. We can't give them a win. We can't give them a win, and if we cower, we give them a win.
Have you got Jewish people in Australia who are hiding signs of their Jewishness, who are not perhaps wearing the kippah or not wearing a Star of David, things like that?
I know people who unfortunately decided not to come to synagogue or not to come to Jewish events, or afraid to have people go, even though it's probably the most protected places, our synagogues and our institutions, because the police are stepping up their protection of us, and as I said, the communal security group. So, but yes, that's absolutely the case. It's like living during the Holocaust. It's literally like living during the Holocaust, not in Europe. Let's say you were in Australia or in the United States during the Holocaust. That's how we feel right now. This is the attack we had. And at that time, that we don't have 100% backing from the general community is outrageous.
And Jewish person said this earlier in the week. The Nazis hid what they did. They tried to hide their evil, the slaughter of the Jews.
Here it's being celebrated in the
Hamas
streets.
videos it, puts it on social media, promotes it and celebrates it and is proud of it. So this Jewish hatred is almost even more virulent now than it was then.
Absolutely. The only difference is that the Nazis were able to murder 6 million Jews, and if Hamas were given the ability, they would do it.
They would
and
do the same.
ridiculous thing is how we don't believe what they say. Just look what they're saying.
Well, we certainly do believe them, and we are horrified. Rabbi, you mentioned the Holocaust being in Europe. Stars of David are being graffitied on Jewish homes in Berlin at the moment. I mean, that is how disgusting it is. Certainly on behalf of this show and all of us, our thoughts are with the Jewish community 100%. And we say to all outsiders out there, as the Rabbi says, if you know a Jewish person, go up and offer them your full, vocal and unswerving support.
Can
Rabbi
I say?
Nachum? Yes.
Two last points or one last point?
One last point.
One last point. And the last point is that we believe that the whole world is one. And therefore, any good that we do actually has an impact generally for the whole world. So in addition to what you just concluded with, if just go out of your way and do something positive. Because in this time, we don't say what's going to be. We have to say, what can I do? And everyone in the world can do something to make it a better place. We can advocate, like you guys do amazingly. Really, we're very appreciative of that. And we could actually even being kind and doing a good act, but being kind to those who need kindness. But being kind to the cruel is being cruel to the kind.
Rabbi Nachum Shapiro from Chabad, North Sydney, thank you so much for coming on Outsiders this morning.